Time to get back into tuning. So it's been a while since I put a video up. The last video was a basic one, just the introduction to the Cobb Accesstuner, and now it's time to get back into the actual details of what the tuner can do. Mostly, I took my time off to focus more on the car, myself, and to figure things out and how I want to do this approach. I wanted to actually gain some knowledge on the car itself and the tuning so that I can improve these videos as I'm going to go in more in depth about them. So what we're going to start with is going down the way I tune, and then we'll start breaking down each one of the tables and my approach to tuning them and all the tools that I use. And so these videos may be kind of long, but the whole point is to kind of create an archive per se, so that you can go through them and skip to the parts that you need, and I don't have to have 1,000 videos when I can cover it in half or less than that. So let's get started. Alright, so what I want to cover here is basically give you an idea of the changes that I've made, and go down some of that pathway. So I want to catch you up on the how far you can go with tuning. So what I have pulled up here is a Cobb Stage 2 93 octane version 3 tune. I believe this is just the standard, the wastegate. I think there's a high wastegate and a low wastegate version. This is just the standard version of it. So what I want to kind of break down, I'm not worried about stock. Stock, I mean, tuning from stock is something you do when the car is completely changed or whatnot, or well, I shouldn't say that, but that's usually when you would start a stock tune. Or in this case, if Cobb didn't provide this kind of information and you were doing it with a car that doesn't have this base tune, then you would start from stock. So in this case, we're starting from stock, except from a Cobb Stage 2, because I would assume most people that are tuning are at least have a Stage 2 vehicle with the intake and exhaust and downpipe, or the combination of those. So we'll start there. There's nothing wrong with starting with something that a big company has already produced. It took time, R&D'd into it. There's no point reinventing the wheel. We're all learning here. So this is a great start, and it's helped me get to where I am. So really quick, what I want to do is I do want to compare some of the differences to a stock map. So there's some changes that Cobb has made. I just wanted to go through these because this is a very good place to start, and this will give you a good idea of just how different an intake, a downpipe, and a turbo back exhaust. I believe that's what the stage kit includes. I'll double check that, but with just those three parts, and then of course just improving the tune from Subaru, which is really a rich tune. What you can do with those parts and improving the tune from Subaru, how much you can actually change. So they actually changed a little bit with the AVCS tables. They probably advanced or brought back some of the intake cams there. Boost control. So can I actually? Yeah, we'll just go through it this way. This will be easier. So in this case, you can see that they increased and decreased by -1. Not sure about what that is, but they gave it a little more advance on the top end, low end. Boost cut. It looks like they increased the boost cut up for 4.7. Boost targets, at some point they actually went up to 7. Curious what the actual value was there. Probably like 11 or something like that. I'm not sure. Let's see. Knot conditions. That really didn't get touched. Same here. They didn't really mess with the knock. Find out learning that doesn't matter. MAF calibration. Not much was changed there from stock. Ignition timing, looks like they added a little bit of timing in the bottom. Primary fuel, they looks like they leaned it out a little bit. Let's see, wastegate. Obviously, change the wastegate to hit the boost that you want. So those are the few quick things just to get you an idea how much you can change to the car in order to change the outcome of it, with just a few simple parts and then a few adjustments from a stock tune. Now, as a quick disclaimer about that information, my car never actually saved the stock tune, so when I do this compare to stock, I hope it's pulling the correct stock information. So hopefully this is correct information. But even if the numbers you see don't match up, that's fine. You get an idea of what Cobb actually changed, and that's my point here. So on to the next thing. So let's go into some changes that I have done, and we'll load up one of my maps here. I've done different naming schemes across the board, but let's start one of my older ones. Yeah, so some of the older stuff here. So 1.3. This is just some lower wastegate changes. So we'll just start with this one here. We'll load it up, and we'll go through some of the changes that I made. And if I had to remember some of the parts, it was just this was my start to tuning from Cobb's tune to improve performance. And I think I had a bunch more done. The intake, the turbo back exhaust system, there's a blow-off valve, and a few other little bits and pieces outside of the standard Cobb-based tune, which needed to be adjusted. So going through my first three changes, let's go ahead and compare this to Cobb's actual tune. So here's the changes I did to my car from Cobb Stage 2. In this case, I adjusted the wastegate high and low to increased boost. Let's see. I did change the, can I actually see both at the same time? Yes, I can. Let me make this a little bit smaller. I didn't realize I could do that. So, boost tables here. I changed the way the wastegate happened. Now, the reason I did, I put in a Grimspeed 3-speed manual boost controller. So, of course, they recommend you drop your tables for your wastegates at least 30% to start. That boost control solenoid, the Grimspeed, is very accurate. I won't go into details of how the actual product works, but it's able to do its job a lot better than the 2-port system that the standard Subaru has. So I jumped my wastegate duty cycle down pretty far to accommodate for that. Let's see. Closed loop fueling target compensation load. Let's see here. Fuel tables, closed loop, load. So this was closed loop fueling compensation. Right. So in this case, this part is a compensation table for closed loop. I got rid of closed loop and went straight to open loop, and my car runs full open loop all the time. It's basically just closed loop is for fuel economy. If you want to have the car adjust based on a certain scenario to jump between the two, there was no need for that. My car is literally just for building it to have fun. So I don't need a fuel economy in this case. So this is actually based on the guide that I followed. So they just recommend zeroing this out, but it's closed loop, so it just makes sense. Next thing will be the dam threshold. So where is that table at? Let's see. So under primary, under fueling and under the open loop fueling, this is the dam threshold. So basically, when the dam drops below this value, the primary open loop fueling high detonation table will be used. I increased this from, I believe it was at 4.4. I increased this to 0.8. If I'm racing somebody or whatever I'm doing, and I lose power and I lose or I get a bad time during autocross, that's fine to me because I don't want to blow my engine. So I increased this number so that it would trigger faster, or at least the system would trigger if the car hit 0.8 instead of 0.4. That's just a personal change that I made. Next thing, we'll look at ignition tables, the dam reset table. So ignition tables, dynamic, the reset. So this table is the initial value of a dynamic advance after the ECU is reset and the beginning of the course. So basically what this does is when you reset the ECU or you clear a code or you flash a new map or something, this will actually set the dam value, in this case, to 0.7. And then your car will basically learn to push it up to 1.0 if you have a 32-bit ECU. In the case of 16, if you're on a 16-bit ECU, which is an older WRXs. So I put it at 1. When I reflash when I reflash a map or I reset the ECU, I want this to be at 1 right away so that I don't have to worry about the car learning that value. Again, a personal preference, but it seems to be pretty standard. That's what most people do. Let's go into the next one. Let's see here. What do we got? The primary ignition. So we'll jump into that one. Primary ignition. So the only change I made here initially, because I was learning timing, was I adjusted the actual value of the load. Now I'm going to go into that separately, but just so you know, I did adjust the load because the map itself, I was hitting the load beyond what the car was actually mapped to. Again, I'll explain that here at another time. So course load, let's see, ignition timing, not control, course load, modify. Okay, again, so this is basically to change the RPM range so that you can adjust the actual time in which knock learning starts and stops. So in this case, I just increased the actual value for the load to compensate for the load change I made. So there's going to be a lot of places, like that's probably going to be a separate video just changing the load. The next thing, let's see, we got knock control, find knock learn, load range, you have to make the same adjustment there. Launch control stuff, I won't cover that much right now, that's just fun stuff. MAF limits, so another thing you do have to adjust is your MAF max. So I was at, I believe, 300, and I went to 500, that's just a standard. This number doesn't mean too much, it's just a max limit you can set. So I don't plan on hitting 500, but I want it above the max so there's no issues, or at least far enough away to where I don't have to hit it. Load compensation, so sensor calibration, load compensation, manifold pressure. This might have been a change from the Cobb map that carried over into this map. I don't remember much about this table. I'll look into it and I'll add a little detail to the notes of the video if I find something about this one. So next thing, find knock learning, won't worry about that. And then of course I do have a TVG delete system. So in this case, I actually turned off those codes, and I talked about that in the Cobb video. And the first one, let's see, I think it was advanced parameters. Yeah. So under here, you can see that I have turned off the TVG system because I got TVG deletes. The ghetto version where you just cut it out, bore it out basically, and stick in a bunch of rubberized glue to stop the sides instead of an actual IAG or whatever manufacturer system that you put in. While we're here real quick, there's a few other things that you'll see on Cadillac system efficiency. I'm having a Cadillac converter, post Cadillac fuel trims and stuff like that. So this is where you can kind of turn off some codes. So let's go ahead and unload this comparison, and we'll go through a few more of the changes. So boost control, this is a fuel cut, so that didn't change much. Boost targets, these were based off of what Cobb suggested, so I left those the same. Let's see, max adder. So this is where I did not change this part yet. So this is before I was actually learning. I was doing different stages in the map. So this is the table you'll generally zero out because you don't want a fourth condition of knock, because then at that point you're gonna have 4 different variables, and one of those variables you might have to change in order to figure out where your knock is coming from. So if you had this adder in here, this would be adding, then your knock conditions will be adding, and then your final primary ignition will be adding. And this may say 20, but it might actually be 23 based on all these here. So you're not really actually understanding where the knock needs to be adjusted. So this is just one extra thing that you can get rid of. It's just a Subaru protection based system here. Let's see. I didn't mess too much of these. I went over this in the first video. Let's see. I just kind of wanted to show you some quick differences between what my map was and what a Cobb map was. So in the next video, what I do want to cover is the information that the information about how you're going to get those changes, what tools you're going to use, and what references you're going to use in order to make those changes. I wouldn't suggest us going in there and adding a number and seeing what the result is. You're not going to be happy if the engine is not happy. So what I'll get ready, I'll get the next video set up, and we'll go into detail about resources and how to figure out what you need to change. See ya.